All right, it is 5:01, and I will call this Oversight and Finance Committee meeting to order. Secretary Shope, could we have a roll call, please?
Delgado,
Present.
Jacobs, I believe she is out of town, and Levy.
Here.
2 board members are present. Levy is in the boardroom, and Delgado is virtual.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Secretary Shope. Next up, we have our minutes. Before I receive a motion to approve, there were just a couple things I had questions about. Under number 2, reports in section B, that last sentence, I'm not sure what's going on with the question marks. So it says, are there extra supports and then question marks? I think that was just supposed to go at the end. And then I don't know if it was probably like an auto-correcting or something, but under number 3, finance, insurance, and contracts, about halfway down, not the sentence, but the line starts with iPads, used for testing. There's that question mark issue there again.
Okay.
And then under move to recommend the proposal for the iPads, that number, I didn't recognize that. So I'm not sure if that was accidentally placed there or if that's some type of coding.
Okay.
And then the other thing, this is extremely minor. On the agenda from that meeting, there's 2 different amounts. So it's $167,624, and then it also says the $167,625. So whichever one is correct, if we could just go back and make sure that those are all the same.
Sure.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Board Member Delgado, could you offer a motion to approve the minutes, please?
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Board Member Levy, are you going to approve the agenda first, or?
Oh, thank you. Could you start with a motion to approve the agenda, please?
So moved.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right. There are none opposed. That motion carries. Board Member Delgado, could you offer a motion to approve the minutes, please?
Motion to approve the minutes.
Perfect. And those will be the minutes, I believe, from the March 9th meeting. I will second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right, the motion carries unanimously. All right, next up, we'll begin with our reports, our athletic and activity COVID-19 update. So, Mr. Beard, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, everyone. To go ahead and share my screen and get started. Should be good there. All right. Good deal. All right, so good evening, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to give you an update on what we've been doing over the last month or so, and be more than happy to answer any questions at the end, and whatever else you need for this presentation. All right, to start summing up our alternate fall sports, the season obviously began February 8th. Girls swim season is complete. They finished last Tuesday with their state meet in Waukesha South. We had a great turnout with that. Our 200 medley relay team qualified for state and finished 13th in the state. Faith Still finished 2nd in the 100 backstroke and 3rd in the 200 breaststroke, I believe. So she did extremely well. The team did extremely well and represented Beloit Memorial to the fullest. And so I was really proud of them. Girls volleyball finished their season last Saturday in the regionals with Janesville Parker. They finished on the losing end in the regionals, so their season is complete too, as well. They competed hard. They were down a couple people with some vacations and things like that, but the girls absolutely competed. So I was proud of them. Boys volleyball, their season ended earlier than expected, and we had to opt out of the WIA tournament that weekend or last weekend due to some COVID concerns. So unfortunately, they weren't able season in the WIA tournament. Football is entering it. Last week they were entering the week 3. They're going into week 4 now, again with a game against Middleton, first home game of the season. So we're very excited about that. And then boys soccer is off to a great start. They started out a couple games in Rockford playing on the turf, but now they've played a few games at home. Had a tough loss to Middleton. They were right there in the game, kind of fell apart a little bit at the end of the game. But I would say as of a couple days ago, I'm not sure if it still holds right now, but Omar Munoz is the leader in the state as far as goals scored. So that's pretty awesome for them. I also took the time, and it was asked that we get some student feedback. So I sent out a survey to our alternate fall sports groups, and I asked 3 questions. And the first question is, do you feel the return of athletics has helped you refocus academically? We had 89 responses. So we had a few more today, but 89 responses for the most part. And then we had 82% say yes, 12.4% say maybe, and 5.6% say no. For question number 2, do you feel safe with the COVID protocols in place for athletics? 88 or 89% say yes, 7.9 or 8% say maybe, and that's a typo there. We had a little bit less than 3% for that say no. And for the third question, do you feel that the return to athletics has helped improve your mental and overall health? 92% say yes, 4.5 say they're about the same, and 3.4 say no. So that is a little feedback from the alternate fall student athletes. Obviously not everyone responded, but it's a good chunk of them, as our numbers have been a little bit low with the change of the fall season. So moving into spring sports, we'll be getting started next week with baseball, softball, track, and boys golf. And then girls soccer will begin April 26th. They have been doing some open gyms and contact days for the last 3 weeks, and they're definitely ready to go. We have an overlap that'll happen here with fall and spring sports, with football going and boys soccer still going for a couple of weeks. So that we'll have to work those things out, but I think we have a great plan for that. And our activities are going strong as well. Theater finished up the Zoom-based fall play, and making plans for a spring musical. So that's good. The Crescent has been out taking pictures at sporting events and anything where the students are involved, and they're working on putting together a website so they can paper out and get that going. They actually completed the essentially Ellington recording. So they got that submitted to that. So that was a big thing, and I know that was something the kids were excited about. So orchestra has been going well as well. Students are participating in both. They do both in-person and virtual. So the activities that are going or planning to meet, we have Right Night, the GSA, Environmental Club, and National Honor Society. National Honor Society actually has some activities planned this week. So the kids are excited about that. All right, our intermediates with the return of school are looking to get their students involved in some activities and camps and that. So each school would like to run a sport camp at their individual schools. The principals and the athletic supervisors decided that volleyball, basketball, and soccer would gain some interest from their students. And then we would have each camp run for 2 weeks for each grade level, 6th, 7th, and 8th, and they will rotate sports after 2 weeks. All right. So, and then in the 4th and 5th grade, they wanted to do more of an outdoor recreation, and it's more at the individual schools because they have different facilities. So they wanted to take advantage of those on the outdoors. So leaving it up to the 4th and 5th grade, what they would like to do at the discretion of the school and the principals and the advisors. So each school will have 2 advisors per camp, sport camp that's offered. And then the advisors will be focused on participation, getting students engaged, and some skill development. There will be no competitions though. So this is not athletics or anything like that. This is just trying to get the students active again, get them back engaged in school and some activities, and getting to participate in some things that they might love outside of school. We're looking at the advisors receiving an addendum of $1,000 for the 6 weeks that they advise the camp, that they run the camp, and each school up to 10 addendums. We're looking at using some of our coaching addendums that we did not use and reallocating those to the advisors at the discretion of the principals, and they could put some advisors in those positions. All right, and the advisors will coach for 6 weeks, and then they will receive a new group every 2 weeks. All right, and each coach will do 4 days per week. So cohort A would be Monday and Tuesday. Cohort B would be Thursday and Friday. So how that would work is a simple rotation would be 6th grade would participate in volleyball for 2 weeks. Cohort A would be Monday and Tuesday. Cohort B would be Thursday and Friday. So they do 2 weeks of that, and then the 6th grade would move to basketball. And then they would do the same thing for 2 weeks, and then they would move to soccer for the last 6 weeks. And by the time they get through that, term 4 will be pretty much over. Each day, the camp will go from 4 to 5:15, and then the last 15 minutes to clean things up and sanitize. We set a maximum of 30 students in the gym for volleyball and a maximum of 40 for basketball and soccer that would be outside. There would be no busing between the schools. Everything would happen at the school site. There's no locker rooms will be available, and we're projecting to start April 19th, which is next Monday. So that would be what we like to do for the intermediate schools through the rest of the year, and we can ask some questions after that at the end. As far as spectators are concerned at the high school, our athletic events are starting to move outside with the end of volleyball. I've been doing some research and talking to some other ADs about how are they calculating the number of spectators at events, and came across this equation that they use in Madison. So it takes the spectators per player, and then the equation would be the capacity of the facility at 25%, efficiency meaning capacity, and then divided by the number of players and staffs that will be there. And this is an equation that they're using in Madison in our conference, and I think we could apply here in Beloit. It is not an exact science though. It's something that we can use, that we can base things off, and it's flexible enough for us to adjust if need be, if things change with the pandemic. But it is just a general rule of thumb, for us to give us a base. So another general rule of thumb is to leave 3 empty seats horizontally in between each group. So typically a group is 1 to 4 people in a household. So if they all sat together, we could leave 3 seats in between each group horizontally in that row. And then we would skip a row, and then we could do the same thing 2 rows behind. All right, just some background information on how bleachers are calculated. They calculate a seat as 18 inches wide per seat. So from the center of the seat to the seat 4 seats over, it's about 6 feet, and that's where we're getting the 3 seats in between each group. A recommendation would be to ask our spectators to leave 3 seats between them, and then skip a row. And we could rope those off, or we could use signs that we could actually put on the bleachers that are waterproof and stay there throughout the spring season. So if we look at it by sport, and we're basically taking Jacobson Field we're using Jacobson Field here. So for football, if we had 3,000 spectators, which is the capacity of Jacobson Field, 25% of that is 750. Between the 2 schools, participating schools, players and staff, estimated number of about 185, which would equal 4 spectators per player per staff. So the spectators in football sit on opposite sides. So in our stadium, the side with the press box has the most seats. The side closest to the river would be the visiting side. But with this number, we'd still be able to socially distance at 6 feet apart. For boys and girls soccer, we'd use 1,000 spectators instead of 3,000 in Jacobson, which will give us a 250 at 25% capacity. A lot less players with only 60 players and staff, which would also put us at about 4 spectators per player. Now in soccer, the spectators sit on the same side of the field. So we would have to split that in half. One would be the home side, one would be the visiting side. So estimated on the home side of 2,000 spectators total. So we cut that in half for each side. So that's how that number is determined. And then track and field, same again, we use that 3,000 number for spectators, 750, 25% capacity. Now with track, there's a lot more student athletes and staff. So that number's bumped up to 220 players and staff, and that will give us 3 spectators per player. So we'd round it down. So it's about 3.41. And then we would use both sides of the field for as far as bleachers are concerned. So moving forward, we'd like to provide the opportunity for intermediate students to participate in athletics, not athletics, but camps, in athletic after school camps, and to give them the opportunity to re-engage, and then also allow spectators to attend outdoor events at the high school for football, soccer, and track. I'm also, which is not on here, we also starting baseball and softball. Those 2 sports, their home fields are run by the city or the YMCA, so we would be subject to their spectator guidelines when it comes to our games for that. So at that point, I will turn it over to Board Member Levy and ready for questions.
Thank you so much, Mr. Joel. This presentation was very helpful. I have a few questions, but I'm going to go ahead and let Board Member Delgado go first. If you have any questions, could you ask those now?
Yes, thank you for the presentation, Mr. Beer. So when are we expecting to start allowing spectators to come into the game?
I would like to start spectators next week, Monday, if approved tonight.
Okay. Are we going to be mandating that they wear masks as well?
Absolutely.
Even though it's outside? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. That is a requirement. Actually, that is a requirement for our conference, for us to participate in the conference event. Now that Madison's coming back into it, everyone involved must wear their mask at all times, including spectators.
That's great. Thank you. And will the game still be televised to be able to put into the YouTube channels because the amount of people that would be allowed to come in to personally watch the game, it's not the same amount that we would normally have. Are we still going to be able to televise those games?
Yes, we will definitely be able to do that. I have a much better camera than I've been using for soccer in the last couple of weeks going in tomorrow out at Jacobson Field. I'm also looked into having 2 cameras put into our field house and our swimming pool so that we can continue to offer the live stream when parents and family cannot make the game physically, even next year and moving forward. So I would like to continue to live stream our events because it gives everyone an opportunity to participate and watch and see their students be involved.
Okay, just a few more questions. I'm sorry. Is there going to be like a registration kind of, process for people to be able to come in?
Yes. So we will have, what I do is I'll send out a game information sheet to our opponent. And on that game information sheet is a Google document that I share with the opposing athletic director and coach. And they put their roster in there along with the names of the people who are going to be attending that event that day. And then we will take that Google document and have it at the door. And when the spectators come up to the gate, we'll be able to check their names off of that list.
That's awesome. Thank you. And then my last question is, are we planning to have any type of security to be either vigilant to make sure that everyone are following protocols?
Yes, we will have we'll have our security officers there. They have a list. I will provide a list. I was waiting to see if we will be allowing spectators before I gave them the list of events that we'll have. And once we do that, then I will provide the list to them, and they will sign up like we've done in the past. And we usually have 2 to 3 security officers at every event.
Thank you for answering my question. That's all for me. Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you, Board Member Delgado. I have a few questions as well, Mr. Beard. The first, if we could go back to intermediate sports, you mentioned that there would be no busing between schools, that everything would be contained. Will there be busing, I believe you said at 5:15, for students that need transportation home?
Usually when we do camps or anything after school, we do not provide after school transportation home, but it is something that we can look into, but we have not done that in the past.
Okay, and no problem. I just wanted to know if that would be available. Board Member Delgado asked, and you answered a few of the questions about enforcing the distancing and the mask, et cetera. Are we doing screeners for outside events or just the
We will
check-in?
do screen. We screen. Well, let me pause here for a second. So the WIA requires that the visiting team screen before they get on the bus, and then we have to screen before each event as well, being the home team. So we'll have that screener taken care of there. The opposing athletic director also signs off on a sheet that I receive for every event that we host. We also have our screeners, or our officials do our screener, so we check them off as well, and our event workers screen. The visiting spectators, we have not done that yet because we haven't had spectators, and that was not part of the plan to have them screen as well.
No problem, just curious. The question that I have about soccer, are you using a different capacity maximum because both sets of spectators are sitting on the same side of the field and you're not able to utilize both, that 1,000 capacity instead of 3,000?
Correct. So on our home side, we could probably have, we're very close to 2,000 spectators at full capacity on our home side. So giving each side a half, so we cut that down to make sure that we can maintain our 6 feet of distance. There's a WIA rule and a soccer rule that the benches have to be on one side of the field and the spectators have to be on the other side of the field. So therefore we cannot use half of the other part of our bleachers. So that's why that rule is there.
And my final question, excuse me, I believe may be for you and for Dr. Kieser. You said that you were hoping that this could be approved tonight, but it's listed under discussion. And our next meeting for us to go to the full board would be on the 27th. So is there a way we can approve it tonight for movement to the full board on the 22nd, because it would need to be posted, and it wasn't included on our agenda for this evening. Is that the request that you're making?
I would say yes then.
Okay.
Yes, I would say yes.
All right, sounds good. Last call, Board Member Delgado, do you have any other questions for Mr. Beard?
Not necessarily to Mr. Beard, but I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mr.
Okay, I'm sorry. I just wanted to clarify the date that Board Member Levy just said. Would you say the 22nd or the 27th?
The 27th.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Thank you.
No problem. All right, Board Member Delgado, I would be interested in entertaining a motion to approve the presentation for spectators to be moved to the full board at our regular board business meeting on April 27th, 2021.
make a motion to move the approval to allow spectators to attend outdoor events, and also providing the opportunity to intermediate school students to participate in athletic after-school camps to be moved to April 27th, 2021.
Perfect. Second? All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right, the motion carries unanimously. Thank you again, Mr. Bearder. We appreciate this.
Thank you very much.
All right, this moves us to number 3 on our agenda, finance, insurance, and contracts. A is the Torah lawnmower RFP.
Good afternoon. Currently in the district, we have over 70 acres of grounds that we maintain. And the tools in our arsenal, we'll say, as far as the lawnmowers, in order for us to cut it, we have 3 zero-turn lawnmowers, which have a 6-foot deck, and we have 1 multi-decked lawnmower that has a 16-foot cut. A lot of acreage for 3 or 4 machines. The multi-deck lawnmower, we've had significant issues over the past 2 years with it breaking down. And when it would break down, it breaks down for a long period of time, and it's also costly. So what we have to do in turn is we have to rent a same size machine, which has to be semied into our district and then semied out. And because knowing that this is going to be a continuing problem, last year I put into my 10-year capital improvement plan to purchase this lawnmower. Now, this lawnmower, the big difference between this lawnmower and the current lawnmower that we have is that this is going to be a multifaceted lawnmower. We are actually purchasing a 7-foot snow blower and a 7-foot broom. This broom we're going to use not only in the summertime for debris, but also in the wintertime for parking lots. So if you get a light dusting of snow, instead of plowing it and then salting, we'll actually just brush it off, no salt. Having the 7-foot snow blower, which throws 35 feet, also allows us to clear parking lots on our own without having to hire any contractors with a dump truck to move it off-site, such as if you want to think about the high school parking lot. Typically, we have these big snow piles by January, February, that we have to either hire out or move on our own. Now, this lawnmower we're looking at will bring us a stable cutting platform. And that is something where, again, we are, the board has charged my department with making the maintenance and grounds department one of the best in southern Wisconsin. And that is a promise that I want to deliver on. This platform will help us get our grounds there. So we released an RFP. We had 1 response because we were machine specific. We did a lot of research, and this is the machine that is going to be the best fit for our district. And with the attachments, as you can see, the RFP response fell within what I thought it would fall into at $136,000. Once approved, we can have this on site within 60 days to help with our current grass cutting. Are there any questions at all?
I do have one question. So you said that we currently have 2 machines that are not specifically reliable.
We have 1. This machine that we want to purchase is a multi-deck. So it'll have 3 decks, which equal 16 feet of cutting, where the smaller units only have 6 feet of cutting each individually. So what we'll do is we'll take 2 grounds people, put them on the smaller ones to get in the tight areas, and then 1 person inside this multi-deck to get the large areas. Think of McNeil, think of Aldrich, spots like that.
So this machine will cover the needs of the district as far as grounds maintenance?
Absolutely, and more.
Okay. And if I'm understanding it correctly, just for curiosity, it's one platform that has interchangeable components, so you can do the brushing, the shoveling, the et cetera?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
All right, thank you. Board Member Delgado, do you have any questions for Mr. Winters?
I do not.
Okay. Well, if there are no other questions, I would be willing to entertain a motion.
I move approval to purchase the Toro Groundmaster and attachments in the amount of $135,914.26.
Thank you.
I'm not sure if this has to go to the full board.
It does. Okay. Thank you.
It
I'll
goes to the full
second.
board.
Thank you. Michelle, did you get that? Ms. Shoop, sorry. All right, I will second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right, the motion carries unanimously. Mr. Winters, thank you.
Thank you, committee members.
Absolutely. All right, we are going to move on to item B, which are our financial reports for February 2021.
Good evening, everyone. Let me see if I can get this presented. Okay, everybody able to see that okay?
Yep, you're good. Go right ahead, please.
Okay. Okay, so as you can see, February is a relatively quiet month. We'll see the activity start to pick up again in March when we receive one of our major sources of funding, the state equalization aid payment that comes at that time. Okay. For our revenues without grants, we didn't have, again, any significant activity to report for February. The general revenues are trending almost exactly as they were this same time last year. For expenses with no grants, again, not any significant activity. The major item to note in February is the cleaning services looks like it's trending down this month, but that's just due to the timing of the payments comparative to this time last year. We continue to trend slightly lower than we did last year, and again, that's likely due to COVID. Revenues on the grant side, again, we are trending lower. This is slightly skewed because of the technology back order that we are expecting later on. And keep in mind that once those expenses do hit, then it takes about a month for the revenue piece to catch up. So we can just jump over to the revenue side. And again, I'm sorry, this is the expense side. The trend, again, is slightly lower as compared to this time last year, and that's due to the technology back order. We're going to start seeing some movement because those items are going to start to ship in. Any questions?
I don't have any. Board Member Delgado, do you have any questions?
None for me, thank you.
Okay.
All right, thank you so much. Board Member Delgado, I'm willing to entertain a motion to move the February 2021 financial report onto the full board for approval.
So move.
I will second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right, the motion carries unanimously. All right, thank you, Secretary Shope, for the printout, because apparently my computer is having some connection issues, so You saved me before I knew I needed saving. Next, we're going to move on to C, to the 2020-2021 Additional Fund 60 Student Activity Group Approval.
Okay, we just have one. This is a new club that is starting, but it's actually existed previously. It's been dormant for the last few years. The purpose of this club is to expose students to the French language and culture. Any
Okay,
questions?
I don't have any questions. Board Member Delgado, do you have any questions about the new French club?
No, not for me, thank you.
I am willing to entertain a motion. Oh, hold on. A motion to recommend
Can I make a-
approval. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. To recommend to the full board, the approval for the Student Activity Club. I'm sorry, I missed my spot. The Student Activity Club for the French Club.
Okay, could we go ahead and add the 2020-2021 school year?
Yes, thank you.
Perfect. I will second that. Any discussion? All right, all in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right, the motion carries unanimously. Thank you. We're going to move on to 3D, Strategic Planning Services.
Good afternoon. As part of our spring projects, the board had indicated that after the superintendent hire, they wanted the district to start moving on the strategic planning process, RFP. So Ms. Armstrong and myself sent that RFP out and received 7 inquiries back. What we've, and I will share on the screen. The listing of the 7 RFPs and their ranking. We're recommending Batelli for Kids to the committee for consideration and approval. The reason why this was ranked at number 1 is in their overall proposal, they anchor their work within the Portrait of a Graduate, which is part of our work already at the high school with the Collegiate Academy and Academy Design and for Next Generation Learning, as well as their work around having a strategic planning committee, which is what they call their design team, and the working with to go out and get focused stakeholder group community conversations going. In turn, they are also planning a 6-phase process, starting in May, if approved, and going all the way through the next school year with follow-up. Of all of the 7, they had similar concerns in terms of the overall scope of their design team. However, in looking at each of them, they do have some diverse teams, although the teams that they have proposed to work with us specifically have lacked diversity. There is diversity within the organization, and they've worked with school districts, namely the references they gave us were Virginia, Ohio, and Texas. So I know, Ms. Armstrong, if any additions that you want to put in there?
No, I wanted to add that we have contacted the references. I was unfortunately out last week, so I haven't gotten all the responses from them yet.
So at this point, open for any questions and or recommendation for approval from the committee.
Thank you, Dr. Kieser and Ms. Armstrong. Board Member Delgado, I'll begin with you. Do you have any questions for either Dr. Kieser or Ms. Armstrong?
Yes, thank you for the presentation. This is much necessary, I think, expense to have someone that can guide us through, the whole process. I really like the having ongoing support while we go to make sure that we do get, the results that we need once we go through our strategic planning. So, to me, it's a must have. My only question is if we have not been able to go through the different references, how are we basing our decision on going with this company?
Although I did not speak directly with them because of not being in the office, I apologize, but I did go out and look through the other sites' websites that they had that listed their strategic plan, and they were using the product that they had designed through Batelli for Kids. So that gave me that encouragement that they, when you have a product that you're not happy with the outcome, you don't always put it on full display. Unfortunately, like I said, I just returned today, so I haven't gotten through all the responses. My recommendation would be definitely to go with Batelli. We did have some respondents from our number 2 choice, if the board felt more comfortable saying if those references are not positive for the first choice, that the district would consider going with the second choice. We did have a local respondent with our reference checks on option 2.
Board Member Delgado, do you have any other questions?
That's all for me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So first of all, thank you for pulling this work together. We appreciate it. My greatest concern, and thank you for providing the notes, that was very helpful, is that each of the 7 candidates in your pool were cited for a lack of diversity on the team. And I appreciate the clarification that they may have diversity in other areas. But I'm just not comfortable with working with a team that is not diverse. And for me, if all 7 candidates in the pool lack diversity, then that screams that we don't have an appropriate pool to pick from.
And I would say that one of the things in looking at the organization as a whole is we can certainly go back to any of these organizations and say, we have provisional acceptance, but we need a different team so that is more representative of the community that we have. It's just that in the proposal that they gave us, their proposed team members to work with us were not diverse. So we could certainly go back to the organization and say, in order for us to fully approve this is what we would need.
I appreciate that option. I am concerned if they have done their homework on us, as it seems like the 2 of you, and I'm sure many others on your team, have done your homework on them. Beloit is a diverse community, and the fact that they didn't propose a diverse team to work with us, for me, is a red flag. I definitely will not speak for Board Member Delgado, but I am not comfortable with even providing preliminary approval. Again, that's a red flag for me that there's not diversity on the team that they presented to propose to work with us. But again, I am just one voice. So Board Member Delgado, if you would like to provide a motion, I would be willing to hear that at this point.
I would actually feel comfortable with what Dr. Keyser is suggesting. I think that just because they did not provide, members for the team that is going to be working on, and I'm not really sure how their teams work or how they provide that, and I would be more inclined to ask, that question before we make a decision. So I'm really not ready to make a motion. I would like to get more information before even making a motion, and just having those conversations with those with the companies, and and more so with the ones that they're proposing, if that's the best one that they're thinking that we can go with. So, yeah, and if they do not have any personnel that would reflect what our community looks like, that would be able to work with us, then I would be in agreement with you, Board Member Levy, to go ahead and, look for, somewhere else where, they can provide what we need.
Perfect, that works well. I didn't want to circumvent your right to bring a motion, but unfortunately I wouldn't be able to provide a second this evening. So Dr. Kieser, if you could follow up with either any of the 7 candidates, definitely starting with your first 2 choices, or if you want to extend that pool again to see if there are other companies that are more diverse, and we'll put forth initially a diverse team for us to work with, I leave that to your judgment.
Thank you, and bring it back next month for another look at.
Perfect. So we will expect to see this again on the agenda for our May 11th Oversight and Finance Committee meeting. Thank you. All right, that brings us to 4A, the Fall 2021 Early College Credit Program / Start College Now applications.
Are we good now? Okay, I'll start over. Good evening. I am here to present the applications for the fall semester Start College Now applications and Early College Credit Program applications. So to give a little bit of context, these applications are for students to take college level courses either at a local college or university or technical school for credit, and also for credits towards graduation. Applications come 3 times a year for the fall semester, spring semester, and the summer semester. Again, just to reiterate, this is for the fall. The applications that when you look at it, you'll see either a deny or accept indicated. All of those that indicate accept are what we're seeking approval for. Any course that has deny next to it would be because we offer a comparable course already. And the total amount that students are requesting in applications comes to $48,226. So I can answer any questions that you might have at this time.
Board Member Delgado, do you have any questions for Ms. Peltz?
So the expense that we're having is to pay for those classes. Is that correct to say?
Correct. The total number of credits would amount that dollar amount that they're requesting applications for. So actually, ultimately, they won't end up taking that many credits because there's a lot of different reasons. For example, a class might ultimately not fit in their schedule, or they might not be accepted into the class on the college or the technical schools end. But these are the courses that they're seeking acceptance for to try to get into.
And this classes, do they have to go to those facilities to take those classes?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. Those are all the questions I have.
Perfect. Thank you, Ms. Peltz. I don't have any additional questions. Board Member Delgado, I would be open to entertaining a motion to approve to the full Board of Education the 2021 Fall Early College Credit Program / Start College Now applications in an amount not to exceed $48,266.
So move.
All right, and I will second that. Is there any discussion? All right, all in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right, the motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Next up, we'll have 4B, maps for 4K.
All right, good evening. My name is Mark Grunsky. I'm, among other responsibilities, I'm the social studies coordinator for the district. And last year when I joined the district, I surveyed the elementary teachers and asked what they needed to support their curriculum and social studies instruction. And their number one desire and wish was maps and globes for their classrooms, because they did not have anything, most classrooms did not have anything up to date. Most classrooms had no roller maps. And so last year we started looking into them. COVID kind of shut the process down, but this fall now we've gone through and been looking at different companies and the products that they offer. And the proposal is requesting a a set of roller maps for each K-5 classroom that teaches social studies, which would be every kindergarten, first, second, and third grade classroom, as well as half of the fourth and half of the fifth grade classrooms, to purchase a roller map set that would hang on their whiteboard, their chalkboard, in their rooms. Pull down, one map would have the United States and the world. It's a map that would go almost all the way to the floor. World on top, United States on the bottom, and the other one is a full-blown Wisconsin map that would allow, obviously, for the kids to see and learn about Wisconsin. The many different reasons for having this beyond just social studies. It can be a station within a classroom. It can be used to accentuate and support ELA as you're reading different things. Science, where things are, weather patterns, different things like that. Math and, all the math that goes along with globes. So it's really a tool that would support all of our curriculums. It's just something they don't have. And so we'd like to get that in their classrooms by the end of the year.
Perfect. Thank you so much for this presentation. I'm going to date myself, but I remember having those maps in the classroom, the layered ones that pull down. Board Member Delgado, do you have any questions?
I do. So if they're going to be providing for social studies, I know that social studies is one of the subjects for the dual language. And being that it's a dual language subject, I don't know if we have those maps to be like in Spanish as well.
Actually, that was the bid that we brought forward is from the one company that was willing to translate all the maps in Spanish for us. So all the dual language classrooms, all their maps will be in Spanish. We got the proofs about a week ago for the world and US, and they're still translating the Wisconsin map. So yes, the dual language classrooms will have Spanish maps, and the monolingual classrooms will have English maps.
Perfect. Thank you.
That was one of the priorities we had when we asked the different map companies to put in a proposal for us.
That's great. Just to piggyback on that, with the DLI classrooms, will those maps be only in Spanish, or will it be English and Spanish?
They'll just, being the fact this is being used for social studies, and in the dual language program, social studies is taught in Spanish, the maps will be in Spanish.
So let me ask you this. Has any consideration for our students for which English is their first language to have those English backups, maybe if not for the pull-down maps, but to have supplementary maps or globes in that room that are also in English?
We definitely could. It would just be a matter of adding that to the total purchase price. And I came at it from the angle from the social studies coordinator, that if the instruction is being done in social studies, that we would want, if the instruction in the dual language classroom is being done in Spanish for social studies, that we should have the matching materials. There's nothing stopping us, though, from, adjusting this bid or next year going back and purchasing a set of English maps and globes for them as well.
So let me ask you this. What would be the time frame for installation to have these maps in our classrooms?
Ideally the goal would be by the end of the year, but definitely Friday, September 1st. They will have them in district before the end of June. It's just a matter of getting approval here. Then I can let them know, hey, we're all set, we're good to go, print them, ship them, and I'll get them as soon as they arrive here, they'll be in the schools the next day ready to be hung. And truly, you pop them out of a box. More than 90% of the classrooms already have everything installed, ready to go, including the hooks. We just place them on the hooks, and away they go. It's very simple.
Okay. I would love to move forward with this proposal, but I would also like to see supplements for our DLI classes also in English, so we can make sure that we're supporting all of our learners.
Consider it done.
Okay. Perfect. I look forward to seeing you at our May meeting then.
Okay.
All right. Thank you so much. Board Member Delgado, are you ready to make a motion?
Yes. I move approval to recommend approval to the full Board of Education, the purchase of the K-8 maps in the amount of, and that's probably going to be a different amount if we're adding the English maps to the dual language, so I don't know if you want me to state the amount or just leave it.
No,
as it
you
is.
can go ahead with what's printed. The English supplements will come at the May meeting.
Okay, so in the amount of $26,150.40.
All right, I will second that. Is there any discussion? Okay, all in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right, the motion carries unanimously. Thank you so much for the presentation.
Sure thing. And I'll stay here because I'm also the next item on the agenda.
All right, well, we'll move right there to item 4C, automotive alignment systems for BMHS.
All right. With the resignation of Mitch Briesmeister earlier in the year, I have been filling in the last couple months, working with the CTE department, making sure that their needs are met. And one of the items that, and I do not have a big CTE background, so I'm not going to speak nearly as eloquently about this topic as I did about the maps. But at the auto shop across the street, their alignment machine started breaking down in March. Or stopped completely loading the computer system in March of this year. It had been on the fritz for a couple of years. The machine is more than 20 years old. It was running on 3.5-inch floppy disks, which, you know, if I remember my roller maps too, I'm sure the good old floppy disks. And it just had seen better days, and it's no longer working at all. And so he contacted me and said, hey, what can we do about this? We're looking at using Act 59 funds for the purchase of this, for the replacement, I should say, of it. The machine, as you can see in the description that's in the board docs, John Hayes, the auto teacher, kind of put some of the details together for me in terms of exactly what it all brings. But we were up there, I was up there again today. It's just a top-of-the-line, state-of-the-art machine that to allow our kids to, you know, if they learn on this machine with us here, basically anywhere they go, whether it's Black Hawk Tech or into a dealership or an auto shop somewhere, this is the machine they'll most likely be using. So it's really giving our kids the state-of-the-art, top-of-the-line machine right now because ours currently isn't working, so.
Thank you. No, I appreciate having the brochure in there so I can learn more about the Hawkeye Elite Alignment System. I don't have any questions. Board Member Delgado, do you have any questions before we move forward?
None for me either, thank you.
All right, I would be willing to entertain a motion.
You move to recommend approval to the full Board of Education, the purchase of the automotive alignment system for the BMHS in the amount of $27,331.29.
I will second that. Is there any discussion? All right, all in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right, the motion passes unanimously. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You do the same. All right, so this brings us to our meeting closure. Any future agenda items, those can be handled through our Google Docs form or by sending me an agenda, and Dr. Kieser and I will get the agenda scheduled. Our next meeting date will be Tuesday, May 11th, time to be determined. All right, so that is it. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, I have 6 o'clock. And we will call to order the Policy and Personnel Committee meeting for Tuesday, April 13th, 2021. I'll be sitting in today for Board Member Jacobs, or Chair Jacobs. She is out of the area for tonight's meeting. So can we have a roll call, please?
Levy,
Here?
Wong.
Here.
Both members are in the boardroom, and as Board Member Wong said, Jacobs is not present tonight.
Okay, can we have an approval of the agenda?
So moved.
I'll second that. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The agenda carries. And approval of the minutes.
So moved.
Okay, I will second that. And all those in favor of approval of the minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. This takes us to item 2A, which is the quarterly data, staff turnover, and retention. And tonight we will be having Ms. Williams. Is she going to be presenting? She is.
Yes.
Okay.
Hi, good evening, everyone.
Hello.
I'm going to present the screen. Is everyone able to see this? Is it coming up blank?
It's coming up blank.
Okay.
Would you like me to present?
Yeah. That would be great, Dr. Keyser. Thank you.
No problem. All right.
Thank you very much. All right. So, as you know, each year we provide an annual staffing report that also includes can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So the report includes diversity information. It includes our student and staff demographics, our hiring data. And as we continue to do the work to reduce turnover and improve retention with staff and staff of color, we've committed to providing data to the board more frequently and specifically on a quarterly basis. So the statement of purpose, actually, we're using the same statement of purpose that we included in the annual report. And so we actually dug in. We took a little bit of the format from our annual report, but we really wanted to show basically the metrics for turnover and retention. So the next page over, we went into student diversity by gender, race, and ethnicity. It's an important piece when we're looking at the staff that we're hiring and making sure that that aligns with our student demographics as well. And then here we have our staff composition. And so currently we have 910 staff members, and with our minority staff, we're at 23%. Last fall, we were at 22.26%. Page 6, this is where we're digging into the total number of staff and staff of color that we have in each employee group, and then we have that broken down by quarter. Page 7 is where we start digging into our quarterly turnover data. So this provides data on how many staff have left our district, and it's broken down by quarter. And for the purpose of defining a quarter, we're using our school calendar and our quarters by term. And our year-to-date turnover is that 25 staff members have left. And out of those staff members, 8 were staff of color. And then on page 8, we actually have our turnover reasons. So we're actually able to dig into some reasons why people are leaving the district. And previously we had 5 term codes, and we have now extended our term codes to 21 in our HRIS system. So we're able to really dig into themes and patterns and really find out why people are leaving the district. This will be important as we start really honing in on the work that we're doing and being really intentional about how we're retaining our staff. On page 9, we have our hiring summary. And so the bulk of our hiring, of course, always takes place during Q1. And to date, we've hired a total of 177 staff district-wide, and 49 of those staff members were staff of color. On page 10, we outline that our turnover rate for 2019 and 2020 was 16.83%. Our national average in education is 16%, so we're slightly higher than the national average. And this year, our turnover rate to date is 3.29%. We think that's probably due to the pandemic. We don't have a lot of staff leaving the district at this time. And then I think the important piece to this report is really talking about some of the systems and structures that we've put in place. And able for us to do this work, we really need to have some things in place, such as really honing in on our turnover codes so we can be really intentional about the work that we're doing. We've also partnered with diversityjobs.com to provide more outreach when we're advertising for positions to attract a diverse candidate pool. And then we're also in the process of implementing Frontline, which is our recruitment platform. And so we're planning on launching that later this spring. The next page on 11 is the projects that we either have in process or in queue. So as we're starting to work through supporting our short-term goal of reducing turnover, building a diverse candidate pool, these are the tools that we'll be using to address that. So we currently have an RFP out there to work with a compensation consultant to help us hone in on our compensation and total rewards philosophy to help drive retention, look at equitable pay practices, help us put some of the tools in the toolbox with that work. Once we have our recruiter in place, we'll be providing some professional development on inclusive hiring practices. Also creating sustainable staffing pipelines as well. We have a whole lot of work to do with job description cleanup and specifically using language in our job descriptions that are inclusive. We're looking at retaining staff on one-year contracts. And so we are looking at what we can do to retain them and not have to re-recruit them if they're in a program and working towards obtaining their licensure. And so we also need to be mindful that we're compliant with DPI as well. But we want our staff on those one-year contracts that are working towards that to know that we're also investing in them as they're investing in the work on securing licensure. And then we're also in the process of our staff handbook development with our staff handbook work group. In queue for the summer of 2021 is a state interview project. As you know, exit interviews are provided by a third-party consultant, and we're losing some opportunities there. So using a tool such as state interviews will drive some employee engagement, and hopefully we'll see some results in employee retention with the tool of state interviews. And then, of course, succession planning for leadership positions. So we always have traditional recruitment efforts for leadership positions, but we have talent here in our district, and really creating an internal succession plan so we can grow our own staff into those leadership positions is a project that will be in queue for 2021-22. So I will open it up for questions and feedback, and any suggestions or feedback on the format is also welcomed as well, as this is the first time that I've presented the quarterly data to the Policy and Personnel Committee.
Okay, Board Member Levy, your question.
Thank you. I appreciate you moving on our suggestion to have this presented once a quarter. So I'm very appreciative that this information is being thought about, considered, and brought forward. A couple questions. What currently is the district doing to support the staff members who are on those one-year contracts who are pursuing DPI licensure?
So I think probably our mentoring program is probably the strongest tool and the strongest support. I think as we go down this journey of looking at our folks that are on 1 years, that is something definitely that putting some of the tools in the toolbox just for our folks that are on 1 year, so they know where their resources are. So that's also part of the onboarding experience as well. So many times when somebody is offered a 1-year contract, they're also new to the district as well. And so really helping them with the onboarding experience. And I can see where that would be part of that experience for them. So I think once we have our recruiter in place, we also are talking a lot about onboarding as well, in making that so it's an easy transition for those folks.
Perfect. So is there currently no financial assistance as far as credit reimbursement, et cetera?
So I think as we look at creating the pipelines, there are funding sources, and that is a topic of discussion when we are talking about pipelines. And so part of Ms. Armstrong's budget work group, that is a topic that I hope to explore within that work group. And because when we're talking about pipelines, it's not a one and done either. It's about sustaining a pipeline as well.
Perfect. And then my final question/observation is, I love that there is a focus and thinking about promoting from internally, but I would caution us, since our current pool of staff is not on parity as far as racial diversity with our student population, that we can't just limit ourselves to our internal pool when we're looking for promotions. That would be one way, but we also have to expand it beyond our current internal candidate pool. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you.
I just have one very simple question, and maybe I missed it, and I apologize if I did. What's the timeline on the recruiter, or what's the status of that?
So we actually have interviews this Thursday and Friday.
I'm assuming with hopes to be able to make an offer within the next week or two?
I would hope so, yes.
Okay. Thank you very much, and we appreciate you bringing that forward to the committee for information, and that'll be occurring quarterly, is our understanding of that as well. Next topic is the discussion. Next topic is the discussion on the addendum matrix, and that'll be Ms. Williams and Mr. Beard.
So I just want to, as they get prepared, open it up that there was a request to create space for conversations, and to start off with just a overview of the addendum matrix and why it was developed and how it's supposed to be used within the district, and then open it up for questions.
So I think I'll start. I think from a historical standpoint, when we look at addendums for athletics, the last board-approved established matrix was created in 2015 and 2016. And after those changes, there really is no known formula that was used to adjust those addendum amounts. So with that being said, the previous HR leader in the athletic department created a new athletic salary matrix. And that work was done in 2017 and 2018. However, that was not board approved. So our department has currently used the addendum from 2015 and 16. So that's the historical standpoint of the addendum amounts that we're using when coaching positions are being offered. Now, currently, we've used that addendum matrix consistently, the one that was built in 2015-16. And moving forward, Joel and myself, and we have a couple of other people from finance on that work group that will be working on proposing a salary matrix for athletics and clubs and activities. And that work will be done throughout the month of May to be presented to the board in June. And Joel, I can turn it over to you if you have any other things to add to that.
No, I can give a little bit more of the history of the addendum and what was done in 17-18 if needed. The previous HR leader and myself actually were working to work on the positions of head baseball, head basketball, head football, hockey, soccer, and softball. And that's what we were working on. We started to work on it then, and it kind of just fell off the radar a little bit after it was not approved. So, yeah, there's been attempts to look at our addendum matrix, and I'm fired up to continue to look at that matrix and to make it better moving forward.
With a timeline of presenting in June, and then if need be, with feedback, if not approved in June, come back in July so that it will be ready for the 2021-2022 school year fall season.
Okay, thank you for the update and the information, the brief historical background of that. We do have Board Member Levy, you have a question?
Please, thank you. So just for clarification, Mr. Beard, are you saying that the work that was done on the addendum matrix in, I believe you said 2017, 2018, that was never used to calculate an addendum because it wasn't board approved? Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so when you calculate these addendums, you're using that from the 2015, 2016, which was board approved at that point, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and I may be unclear on what I am requesting, but here goes. What I was hoping to glean from this conversation is if you have a head hockey coach and they have this many years of experience, we put that into the matrix, and this is the addendum amount that comes out. Am I oversimplifying that, or does that process of coming to a number associated with addendum work differently than what I just described?
No, I believe that's pretty much what it is. Yeah, I believe that's what it is. So we have a hockey coach. He has, for example, 7 years of experience. We take that into account. We verify that if it's someone outside of the district, and we look at our addendum scale. If it says 6,500, then that's what it would be at 7 years of experience.
Okay, perfect. So I think my last question is, so responsibilities for coaches, is it pretty uniformed across sports? Or is that another thing that goes into factoring that addendum amount?
Responsibilities do not factor into that amount.
So the only thing that, go
sorry,
ahead.
go ahead. The only thing that is taken into account for their addendum is their experience.
Okay, thank you so much.
I guess I have a follow-up question to that, is that, so what about the sports themselves? Is there a differentiation between one sport and the other, the major sports versus sports that maybe don't have as much or as many kids involved, the length of time of the season, etc.?
When you look at our current addendum scale, there does, when you look at the actual numbers, there does seem to be a difference between the sports. What is used to separate the sports, I am not sure what that would be to separate those sports. I would definitely use we're taking into account for the addendum matrix that we propose, the length of season, the amount of time that a coach puts in for that sport, all those things will be taken into account into the new matrix.
Okay. I probably have some additional questions, but I'm going to pause for now.
Just one follow-up. I just want to make sure that I'm very clear. When you talk about length of schedule, anything that's extra, that would be future thinking. That would be for the presentation that will come in June or July. But for this current, so every addendum that this current board has seen, the only factor that goes into arriving at that number is years of experience. Is that accurate?
That is accurate.
Thank you so much.
I don't have any additional questions. Did you have a comment, Dr. Heiser?
No, I think in terms of Board Member Levy, the years of experience and the sport that the position that they have within the sport, so head coach versus assistant coach or something like that. So the only comment I will add to the historical piece was in 15-16, the matrix that was approved was then after the approval, how we arrived in the situation that we currently have is that administration had made changes to those and those had been carried forward. It was through this process that we determined how we arrived at the matrix that we have currently with in specific areas that we've been talking about and why the work needs to be redone and come back with new updated numbers and alignment, not only for sports, but also for our clubs and organizations.
So just for clarification, what you just mentioned with the adjustments that had been made, I just want to make sure we're on the same page because Mr. Beard just told me that there were changes made, but they weren't used in the calculations of addendums. That the only thing that was used to calculate addendums was the board-approved matrix from 2015-2016.
That was the starting point. In our investigation, there have been superintendents and other administrators that have made changes that the board has accepted, and by creating those changes, that's how the addendums matrix have gotten to the state that they are right now.
So the statement that the addendums that were generated were used off of the 2015-2016 matrix is not accurate.
That's the base. The matrix that currently we use, which is the 2015-2016 matrix, as it is right now, has been modified over that time by administration, but not as was stated, was attempted to be reintroduced and board approved, that did not happen. So they've been working with the addendum as it's been handed down. The last board approved matrix was the one that 15-16, but it has been modified since that time. And in part, because the past boards have approved those addendums and created that level of approval, that's how we ended up in this situation that we are in right now.
I appreciate that transparency and the clarification. So just to
Yep.
make sure we're all on
Go
the
for it.
same page. Addendums are being created at will, is what I'm hearing. It started with the 2015-2016 approved by the school board matrix, but adjustments can be made, and we don't really have a clear understanding of how or why those adjustments are being made. And as long as the board accepted those changes, then they went through.
De facto, the board was accepting those changes by approving the addendums. The process should be that the matrix holds steady unless approved by the board. Past boards did accept those changes. That should not, from my understanding and my reading of the policies, that should not have occurred. It did occur in how we arrived today. So we need to rectify that situation moving forward, which will be done.
All right, I agree with you up until the point. I think we need to rectify that like right now, immediately. But that would push us into number 3, so I'll hold the rest of my comments. Thank you, Dr. Kieser.
Yes.
I guess I blanked out on my question. Think for a moment. No, I'm good for now. So, okay, once again, that was just for information. We appreciate the information. I think that this is something that has come to light, and I appreciate Board Member Levy bringing it to the surface and because it's something that should be. Oh, I know what it was. The question I had was, so going forward for personnel approval, if there is a matrix, is there any need? I mean, it's going to go through, but obviously there's no discussion. It's just going to be, you're going to know how much you get paid for each addendum, regardless of what position, what coach, what club it is, correct?
Correct. That is the intent of creating a matrix, particularly for addendums, so that we don't go down the road of subjectivity, but actually go down with certainty and saying this has been vetted, has been approved by the board, and so there shouldn't be any question in terms of what an addendum amount should be. It should be as easy as we've been discussing. I am this particular coaching position in this particular sport with this particular experience, and this is the amount that's been valued at.
So going forward in the future, once we do have this matrix, through policy and personnel, we'll still see the information as far as the pay for each of the addendums and approve them as well?
So for all new hires, they come through the Appendix B, and we have Ms. Esden with us, so she can correct my answer if I'm incorrect in that. Let's just take a coaching position. Once we hire a head coach and that head coach stays in the position longer than their first year, we reissue those addendums. We don't bring them back annually because that would be a very long list. We only issue addendums when there is a new person filling that addendum. So if a coach were to start in one sport, they would show up. They would not show up if they continue, but if they moved and picked up another sport, they would show up that first time when they are hired new for that sport. Same would work with a club.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions on that topic?
A brief one quickly. I appreciate streamlining wherever we can. So if a coach starts in head soccer coach, Their addendum is set. So the second year, it would just be bumped up to reflect that additional year of service experience, et cetera. But that would not come back to the board or to this committee.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Oh, I do have a different question. So I think I have a clear, and again, I appreciate your transparency. I have a clear understanding of the issue with the coaches. Do we have the same concern with extracurricular addendums as well?
That is a very good question. I know that I've fielded feedback from staff as well as administration that it's been a long time since we've looked at those, and so I think the issues there is just more it hasn't been revisited in such a long time, as opposed to administrators requesting different addendum amounts for the same position in different buildings.
Thank you.
Yep.
I do have I guess a clarifying question for me. For the years of service, regardless of what we're talking about here, whether it's clubs or coaches, that's based upon their history within our district or outside of our district as well?
Mr. Beard, is the years of service based on totality of theirs in district or in the sport or club itself?
It is in totality of their experience overall. So it's in the district and outside of the district.
Okay, thank you. All right, once again, that was just informational and this will be a hot topic of discussion over the next few months. Moving on to item number 3A, if we need to, we have, do we need a motion to convene into closed session?
Okay, so my spoiler alert, I may be out of order with this comment. So I just want to be clear about that. Given the information that we've just provided, I am not able to support moving forward with the current addendums because I think there are too many red flags for us to believe that these are equitable. And again, I appreciate the transparency, but if people can just select amounts that they want people to be paid and just bring it to the board, and as long as no one asked a question about it, it gets approved, that makes me very uncomfortable. I would be willing to support something that is consistent and equitable and based on the standards that we said that the matrix should reflect our years of service. So, with that being said, I wouldn't need to go into closed session because this isn't something that I can currently support.
And I appreciate the comments. My concern, and I'll just air the same conversation that, or rationale that I did last time, in that the intent of the matrix was to have that consistency and that clarity. What we've discovered is in specific areas, in this case in sports, we've had some changes in certain areas, but by and large, the matrix has functioned the way it has. I think by not approving the addendums, we are asking our coaches and asking our advisors not to, who are going to be new, that they're not going to be paid those addendums. And I think that is going to be more. That's going to create ramifications with the work that we want to do moving forward. I agree wholeheartedly, and we have a timeline and a plan that Mr. Beard has laid out to rectify the situation. And the board and committee has asked that we bring back this one particular addendum with not using the matrix and make it more in alignment with what we've done this year because of the inequities that we've highlighted. So I think holding it up creates more discontinuity moving forward than is needed.
I agree with you. It does create unnecessary discontinuity. And unfortunately, we've been having this conversation. I believe this is our 4th meeting, separated by 2-week increments. And I am very unclear as to why this information couldn't be brought to light immediately, and we corrected the matrix so that we could get these approved. But unless there's something I'm missing, what I am being asked to support is something that we have all acknowledged is not equitable. And I'm being asked to support it because not supporting it will cause an inconvenience, a bigger problem, instead of fixing the issue when it was initially addressed a couple months ago. So that's just not a position that I'm comfortable with being in, and I appreciate and agree with what you just said, but that does not mean that it's something that I'm able to support because it would be more convenient for others involved.
Thank you.
Okay, with that being said, do we want to separate out items A and B, exhibits A and B?
I can absolutely do that. And Acting Chair Wong, if it's okay with you, I do have a couple questions. So under Employment Recs Exhibit A, I noticed, where is it? Okay, the Library Media Instructional Coordinator, was there, I see that there was adjustment in the calendar days. It went from, was 200 and now it's year round. Was there also an adjustment in pay? Or was that only a scheduling adjustment?
I could take that one, Board Member Levy. So the Library Media Instructional Coordinator was the only coordinator that was on a 200-day calendar. And so she was actually paid by timesheets in the summertime. So really changing her to year-round aligned that position with all of the other coordinators. So it was really a cleanup situation for that. When we looked at the timesheets and what she was paid, and then the 4 weeks vacation, and then the additional holidays, we were pennies within what the other coordinators within her employee group are making.
So that would be a yes?
Yes, I'm sorry, yes.
Okay, and then just another question, as far as protocol, do changes in salary need to come before the board separately or at least announced? Because if I hadn't read that, we wouldn't have been made aware that there was a change to the salary. How is that typically handled?
Ms. Williams?
Do you want me to take that one, Dr. Kiever?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. I couldn't see if somebody was up at the podium. So there's probably not a formalized process outside of bringing employee recommendations to the board. And so as we've looked at this process and providing information, it feels like the employee recommendation forms that we're bringing forward, we continue to include more information to be as transparent as possible. If there's a different process that you would like to see in terms of salary increases and how somebody's employment is impacted other than an employment recommendation form, I'm open to suggestions. This is a process that has carried over, I believe, from year to year, and I believe we just continue to bring more information forward to the board.
No, I appreciate that question, and I'm definitely not trying to create an exorbitant amount of additional work. I just want us to work smarter, for lack of a better term. And so if there is an instance where there is a salary increase, that is something that I would like to be brought to our attention instead of us kind of accidentally stumbling upon it. And I completely get, instructional coordinators should be in line with each other's calendars. We're within pennies. I appreciate all of that, but I don't want it to be an accident that we realize that there has been a pay increase.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I understand.
Do you have additional questions? Board Member Levy?
Nope, that was the only question, and I am comfortable with separating these out. So I move approval for employee recommendations Exhibit A to the full board.
And I will second that. Let's see, I do have one question, and I guess, oh, no, I'm going to skip it because it's not going to pertain to what we're talking about here. So let's, all those in favor of approving Exhibit A for approval to the full board, you signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. So that's going to leave Exhibit B.
I am comfortable with approving Employee Recs Exhibit B, extracurricular contracts only, to the full board. Acting Chair Wong, if that's something you're agreeable with.
I guess the only question is are we not being consistent here? Because if we're not going to, I mean, we haven't got an addendum schedule matrix for the extracurricular. They're all in one, right?
So here is my thinking. These amounts seem to be in line, so I have less hesitation to think that they have been manipulated away from the matrix. Unfortunately, I do not have that same level of comfort with the addendums that are being offered for coaches because they are so across the board, and it doesn't seem to have much rhyme or reason to me.
Okay. I would agree that the amounts are smaller, but I also feel like, okay, if we're going to be consistent, why not be consistent across the board?
I am completely comfortable with that.
Okay. So therefore, table, postpone, or no motion on that?
We can table it if Dr. Kieser would like to bring that back to the group. I believe April 27th. Yep, I would definitely be open to reviewing it at that time. So you're looking for a formal motion. I move that we postpone employment recommendations Exhibit B until our next Policy and Personnel Committee meeting, and that will be Tuesday, April 27th.
And I will second that. Any discussion? All those in favor of tabling Table B, Exhibit B, until the next meeting, signify by saying aye.
Point of
Aye.
order. Oh, I just want to clarify postponing, not tabling.
Postponing, correct.
Thank you.
Sorry. All those opposed? Motion carried. Okay, well, that takes us to the policies for first reading. We move into Attorney Love. Thank you for joining us this evening. And we are going to pick up where we left off before on policy 522.6. I believe it was after the second paragraph. Where it starts, the board will investigate all allegations of harassment. And this is on the policy for employee anti-harassment policy. What's that? Yes, if you could, please. Michelle's going to put it up on the screen.
So were you looking for me to address that paragraph?
If you could, please, yes.
Okay, we want the reference to the other policy because that's the policy that specifically sets out the steps for investigation. And so that's why that was added. I noticed that there's also the comment that this is not happening with the board. I'm not sure whether that's in reference to, we say the board will investigate. If that's a concern, it could certainly be modified to say all allegations of harassment will be investigated in accordance with this policy, and remove the intro phrase about the board will do that. And the same with in the middle of that sentence where it says the board will take immediate steps. Since it's not the board that's actually doing the action at that point, you could modify that to say immediate steps calculated to end the harassment, prevent the recurrence, and if applicable, remedy its effects will be taken.
Board Member Levy, that the comment that you had placed in there, I think is what she's referencing to. Is that addressing, I think we talked about this before.
Well, here's my question. I think it's practice versus policy. So if the policy is supposed to, in fact, read that the board will investigate, then I think the board needs to start investigating. But just for clarification, so logistically, if an employee has a concern, they would go to their direct supervisor. So let's say that's the building administrator. If it can't be resolved there, they would move on to maybe whoever the executive director, whatever umbrella they fell under, and then ultimately to the superintendent. So is it actually our intent to say a teacher has a complaint that the board immediately investigates, or does that work its way up through the administration side? And if it can't be remedied there, then it comes to the board?
The board doesn't do the actual investigation. Under 511, it addresses how the investigation takes place. And first of all, a complaint can be brought anywhere, not necessarily to a direct supervisor, but to another supervisor. That's addressed in 511, how that takes place. So my recommendation to address that concern is to delete the words "the board will investigate," and the policy would read, all allegations of harassment will be investigated in accordance with policy 511, affirmative action and equal opportunity employment. And in those cases where harassment is substantiated, take out the words "the board will take" and insert, and then it would pick up immediate steps calculated to end the harassment, prevent its recurrence, and if applicable, remedy its effects will be taken.
I think that's perfect.
Okay, should we move on to the next paragraph then?
So the next three paragraphs are definitions. And I understand the comment asks to move the definition of these definitions up to the beginning of the policy. You could certainly move them up to follow the first paragraph. I do think you want to start out with your policy statement, but you could move the definitions up. The placement of the definitions is not going to change the meaning of the policy.
I think it makes sense to begin with that common language instead of getting into the policy and say, oh, by the way, let me tell you what we believe these words mean. So for me, it would make sense to move it up closer to the beginning of the policy.
So after the first paragraph, as Attorney Love had recommended?
Yeah, I think that would be fine.
As far as the language itself, we're fine with that?
I am.
Okay. So moving on, is that getting us to the end there, or are we getting in the last paragraph?
For the district policy purposes.
Yeah, for district policy purposes, that paragraph, if I can explain, that it's a sexual harassment means engaging in any type of sexually oriented conduct that would unreasonably interfere with another's ability to learn or function. And the words that would unreasonably interfere have been eliminated. I'm not sure that you want to remove that, because sexual harassment, I mean, you may have policies that prohibit any sexually oriented conduct, but sexual harassment is a legal phrase that does require unreasonable interference and if it's applying to employment, it's unreasonable interference with their job. If it's with a student, it's their ability to learn or function in the school environment. And so I think you want to leave that stricken sentence in for that reason.
It might just be me. I can't think of any sexually oriented conduct that would not be an unreasonable interference. I don't think that there is a reasonable interference. So that's the wording did not make sense to me. I don't think there should be any sexually oriented conduct that interferes with the function of learning, whether it's reasonable or unreasonable. So make that make sense for me, please, Attorney Love.
Well, and that's why, I mean, the distinction is sexually oriented. I agree with you. Sexually oriented conduct would be inappropriate. But for the purpose of your harassment policy, there's a standard that the law requires that if there is sexual conduct that occurs, it must unreasonably interfere. And it may be that one instance may be sufficient that it interferes with someone's work environment or school environment, but one incident under the law would not be normally sufficient to meet the standard of sexual harassment.
So just so we're on the same page, are you talking about number of incidences or degree of horribleness in that incidence? So if someone does something that's sexually oriented conduct and they do it 8 times, like that's legally harassment. But if they just do it once, then it's not considered harassment. Help me with that, please.
No, it depends. They consider severity and pervasiveness. And you look at both of those. It's something that is very severe. You may only have to have it occur once for it to be considered harassment. But if it's, and I don't know what, I'm trying to think of an example, minor, you may be twice or 3 times. Using a phrase that may, and this is, we're talking about sexual harassment, using a phrase that someone might consider to be sexual in nature. And it doesn't, and so it doesn't mean the conduct is appropriate or should be accepted. The conduct could still be viewed as inappropriate, but one incident, and it would depend on the severity and pervasiveness, but in some cases, one incident is not enough to rise to the level of being harassment, to being considered to interfere with someone's work environment. And if I could think of an example, I would give it to you, but they look at both severity and pervasiveness. So someone, for example, telling one sexual joke may not be considered harassment, but two jokes could be. But if the joke was very serious, used really crude language that was sexual in nature, one joke could be enough. So the law looks at both severity and pervasiveness. But to rise to the level of harassment, it needs to unreasonably interfere. And then you use the severity and pervasiveness to evaluate the reasonableness.
So Attorney Love, I defer to your expertise. I am impressed that I believe you made something that made zero sense to me kind of make sense in the process of this conversation. And I am not one for making our policies longer, but I think just as a layperson reading this, if you could provide some language around severity and pervasiveness, so that would make sense to the next person reading this, I think that that would be really helpful.
Okay. Let me ponder that.
And I don't know, Acting Chair Wong, if you would like to table the rest of the agenda, so we're not just overtly putting Attorney Love on the spot, although I know you are completely capable and up to the task. So if we could come back to our next policy and personnel meeting, and Attorney Love will bring that verbiage and we can pick up and finish off from here.
I would agree with that. I also think that we need to be giving consideration to the next meeting to maybe if there's some way we can push it up a little bit, because we've been working on this one policy now for a month and a half now, it seems like. I don't know, it seems like it's dragged out. And I don't know if it's just timing of it or we just continue to get bogged down with some other things. Unfortunately, I think that's been the problem.
I think it's been both. I don't think it's been that long, though. Are you recommending an additional meeting between now and our...
I would just say an earlier start time.
And on the 27th, we have policy and personnel right before the regular board meeting, so we can work with...
I think if we pushed it up a half an hour, if that would be okay.
We can work with the start time there.
Okay. Yep. So yes, I would be comfortable with the motion to postpone it.
All right, I move that we postpone the remainder of the agenda items for the Policy and Personnel Committee, and that Chair Jacobs and Dr. Kieser work out an earlier start time for our next meeting, which will be Tuesday, April 27th.
I will second that motion. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Attorney Love, for the information, and we look forward to talking to you in a couple of weeks.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right, so that brings us to the end of the meeting. Actually, the next meeting will be Tuesday, the 27th. And the time will be determined at a later date. And that, do we have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
I'll second that. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion, meeting adjourned at 7 o'clock.
Perfect.
Hi, Maria. How you doing? It's weird to have people here. This is like packed house compared to what it's been like.
I was a little anxious to come in, but okay, why not?
It's been, yeah, this is,
Dad should join
I think this is probably
No.
4 times as many people that have ever been here in the last 3 months.
Well, it's been a year for me since
Yeah.
I've been here, so I think Melissa was here.
Have you been going into work in person at all?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So it's not like you haven't seen anybody.
No, I stay in my office though, and we have really, like, maybe 12 people,
Okay.
you know, within it, and it's a big building too, so yeah, but for like people in the same room, this is like the most I've been with, so.
Yeah, we haven't had, I mean, I've been in person and meeting with people in my office. Yeah, we haven't had big gatherings at all, but nothing like from what I've been hearing. I mean, Becky went down to Florida and she said it was just a zoo down there. She said it was crazy, you know. Just no, you would never know there's a pandemic going on in Florida.
Right, yeah, I know. And they keep on bringing it to us, so it sucks.
Hey, John. Just to let you know your mic is still on.
Good evening. The time is 7:05, and I'd like to call our meeting to order this evening. Ms. Shope, could we have a roll call, please, for attendance?
Anderson,
Present.
Delgado,
Present.
Jacobs is not available for the meeting tonight. Levy,
Here.
Miller,
Present?
Wong.
Here.
All members are present in the boardroom. Jacobs is on vacation, and Anderson is joining us virtually.
Thank you very much. At this time, we are on 1C, and I would like to entertain a motion to approve the agenda without items E through I, as well as removing Employment Rec Exhibit B as in boy.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion this evening? All right, hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, motion passes unanimously. At this time, we are on 1D, and I'd like to ask Dr. Kieser if he would please lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. At this time, we are at our public comment section of the meeting. Ms. Shope, are there any public comments in our email for this evening? Thank you very much for checking. Is there anybody present in the boardroom who would like to offer a public comment? All right, hearing none, we are on number 3, reports to the board. At this time, I'm going to pass it over to Dr. Kieser for the superintendent board report.
Thank you and good evening. I have the distinct pleasure to introduce Ms. Papke and Ms. Hendricks-Nora, who are co-chairing the Grow Your Own Multicultural Teacher Scholarship, and will allow them the opportunity to share the work of the committee this spring and our plans going into the summer and into next year.
And Joanne is going to airplay our presentation for us. So we're grateful to be here tonight. Michelle is still at the Home of the Lancers, I see. And we just want to bring you an update on the Grow Your Own Multicultural Teacher Scholarship. Will we be able to see the presentation, or is it? Oh, it's up there now. Okay, perfect. Thank you. So you can go on to the first slide. So the data table kind of gives us the purpose for the Grow Your Own Multicultural Teacher Scholarship. We want to bring more minority teachers to the school district of Beloit. Research shows that students all benefit from seeing and being in classes or the school environment with professional educators that look like them. Please take a moment to review the data from this year's diversity report provided to the Board of Education from the Human Resources Department. And Michelle and I are going to take turns between the slides.
Good evening. As you can see, our students need to see professional people in professional roles that kind of look like them. So if we do an overview, we currently have 80 out of 503 professional educators that are a minority. which puts us at about 15.84%. That means the staff members that's actually teaching our students in front of the classrooms and what that looks like. And so while our minority student population makes up 69.1% of our population. So as you see, and as Tanya Williams talked about earlier when we talked about our staffing and things like that, we have some work to do, and hopefully our Grow Your Own Multicultural Scholarship can help us in diversifying our professional educator staff. There are different employee groups where we are doing a good job on that, but we definitely have areas of improvement in regards to professional educators.
So some details of the scholarship. This is the 5th year that we have been working with this program, with 1 year off last year. We partner with the State Line Community Foundation, and the scholarship offers a student $5,000 per year for 4 years at the university or college of their choice. This year we recognized as a committee that mentoring was a missing link in making sure that the students who were receiving the scholarship were getting some support from back home. So our next recipients and our current recipients will be getting some support from teachers that they've had in the past. We have awarded 3 scholarships so far, and 2 of those students are still currently enrolled.
So far this school year, because of the pandemic and things going on, we've been unable to do a lot of big fundraising opportunities. So we went to our staff to help us to continue on this in this year. And so here were some ways that we asked our school district Beloit staff to donate. One of the ways was through payroll deduction. So by the time we got it up and going and meet with the committee, we asked our staff if it was about $2 per pay period or it was like $20 per staff member. So our proposal was if every staff member gave $20, we will meet our goal of $20,000 for this school year. So that was our proposal. We went around and had staff meetings. At every staff meeting, we met with the administrators just to kind of share what we want to do, what our goals. So we did that. We could also donate through Classmunity online with the link through there. So we did have staff members donate through there and share through social media, and then direct donations, which can be cash, checks, things like that, that goes to Wendy and the payroll department at COLAC. So we had people donate there or straight to the State Line Community Foundation.
So our first and most significant donor for the scholarship, who has been with our committee all along, is former Senator Tim Cullen, who offers us a $5,000 gift every year to maintain the scholarship. And then in November, we did a bit of a rollout with fundraising with staff, and then had a heavier hit to the staff in March. So we were offering some incentives for participation. Every building, the staff who participated got put in for a raffle to earn a day off. That will be covered by the admin team and in-house staff. And you can kind of see how the breakdown went by school. So again, we're in a rebuilding year, and we hope to build on that, build on the foundation that we're starting. But big shout out to McNeil with 50% staff participation. So just want to really draw attention to the efforts that Michelle led at the Home of the Lancers. And we hope to have other schools increasing their participation as we go into next year as well.
Just want to point out at the bottom of that last slide too, we did put a section on there for the school board to be able to participate, and our goal is to get 100% maybe participation from the board. So that's why that part is there at the end. Our next one just is an example of someone to grow your own. Ms. Kasike is a teacher at Robinson Elementary, dual language teacher. Awesome, awesome. That's Mason's teacher, and she had Michael. Just an example of someone who born and raised in Beloit that came back to teach in our school district of Beloit.
And then another example we have here is Miss Shanita Ray, excellent freshman teacher at the high school, and also left the community and came back specifically to teach here at Beloit Memorial. So really excited to have many of our own alumni come back to teach in the district.
We talked about this a little bit about just passing the torch. Former Senator Tom Cullen kicked us off. He's willing to help support us going into next year too, always at the meeting, sharing ideas and suggestions from what worked at other districts and how we can continue to make ours better and grow and develop. Again, we challenged the administrative staff, everyone at COLAC and administrators to donate $100 this year, and again, all other staff for $20. And so if people did not get a chance to give yet, it's not too late. You can still give towards our scholarship for this upcoming year to help support one of our students.
And we know with that $20 ask that we had with staff this year, you know, that was getting a couple dollars that added up over maybe 7 pay periods that remained. If we look at the whole year, $2 a pay period adds up to nearly $50 per staff, and that maybe one coffee that you don't have can really make a difference for a student. So to get to that $20,000 per year, that helps us to ensure that one scholarship can be granted to a student going to college as a Grow Your Own student. We plan to take our scholarship out to community businesses and partners for donations. And when we say that we've received commitments from the majority of our staff, we know that those businesses are more likely to make some matches and participate with us. We know that fundraising can be and has been hard during a pandemic, but we know the value of this scholarship and hope that you will see it as well. And Michelle and I and our committee plan to work during the summer to really start that outreach to businesses.
So our two current Grow Your Own recipients are Evelyn Cortez and Karen Soto. Evelyn is working towards elementary early childhood education at UW-Whitewater, and Karen Soto is at Beloit College, and she wants to continue on to get her master's and be a school counselor. And they are both super, super excited and thankful for the scholarship. And so we have a little video that we're going to show a couple slides over, but those are our two current recipients. And we did have one more who decided to change his major, and so he's no longer receiving the scholarship to go into education, but awesome young man too as well.
So the first video that you'll see is Evelyn Cortez. Okay. And not only is Evelyn looking at early childhood, but also special education. She will have that with her license as well. And Karen just was accepted into the McNair program at Beloit College, so they will help support her endeavors to go on to graduate school.
And to succeed more globally. Beloit is considered to be our home. Therefore, making a modest commitment today would bring great returns to our school system and the community by promoting.
There we go.
Hello, my name is Evelyn Cortez, and I'm from Beloit, Wisconsin. In the summer, I graduated from Black Hawk Technical College with an associate's degree in early childhood education. I'm currently enrolled in the ECE for You program at the University of Wisconsin-Whitewater, and where I'm working towards obtaining my bachelor's degree in early childhood education and special education. Once I obtain my bachelor's degree, I would like to return to Beloit and work in the school district of Beloit with children from preschool to 3rd grade, either as a gen ed teacher or as a special ed teacher. Now, I would like to take this opportunity to thank the donors for their generosity in funding the Grow Your Own Multicultural Scholarship. I am very honored to be the 2018 recipient of this award. I would also like to take the time for you to keep considering to donate towards this scholarship for future students, because there is a need for more minority professional educators in the school district of Beloit. Within the school district of Beloit, there are 36% of minority students who come from diverse backgrounds. For this reason, a donation to the scholarship will guarantee a mix of diversity in the school district of Beloit. Having more minority teachers in the schools will give children the chance to be taught by a teacher who looks like them. In the same way, this grant will support both students and the community by promoting the diversity within our students, which will allow them to succeed more globally. Beloit is considered to be our home. Therefore, making a modest commitment today would bring great returns to our school system and the community in the future. Thank you.
And then our second video will come from Karen Soto.
Hello, my name is Karen Soto. I am one of the recipients of the Grow Your Own Multicultural Scholarships. I would just like to thank all of the donors for making the scholarship possible. This scholarship is helping me achieve my higher education as well as helping me come back to my alma mater to give back to my community. My dream is to help out students of underrepresented identities to achieve their goals, to achieve their higher self, in order to have them come out successful as to whatever path they may choose. So I'm glad to be in this position where I have received the scholarship, and I hope the scholarship continues on and on and on, as it is one of the best things to do to help out students achieve their goals and dreams.
Thank you. And I think there's one slide that I skipped mentioning the current status of this year's scholarship. In reviewing this year's applications and consulting with State Line, we recognized that overall, all scholarship applications were significantly down due to the pandemic. Many students are unsure whether they will start college next year or wait for some certainty of being back in person. We have decided that since there was not a scholarship given last year, we would combine the class of 2020, who didn't have the opportunity to apply, and the class of 2021 into this year's application pool, and we are re-advertising the opening of this scholarship being available. So that should be coming out for applications in the next week.
So you're probably wondering, so how can you help and what can you do to support this scholarship? No worries. Pappy will share how you can help us moving forward for this year and planning for next year.
So we appreciate any donations that we can receive, and I have emailed all of you a link to Classmunity, which is sort of like a GoFundMe type page where you can make online donations. You can set up monthly payments if you want to kind of spread out a smaller amount over time, or you can make a single donation. Cash or checks can be directed to either Wendy LaPointe in the finance office or directly to Tara at the State Line Community Foundation. We hope that you'd be willing to spread the word and share the Classmunity website on your social media or among your family, friends, and colleagues. And then this is our big ask to you, is to introduce us to your professional organizations. Michelle and I would love to present the scholarship to local organizations, businesses, church groups, whoever might wish to partner with us and make a donation. So be in touch with both Michelle and I for any way that we can reach out to groups that you are working with.
We want to say thank you to our committee that's up and running, everyone that comes participate, whether they're a school district employee, and our community members too as well. And a special thank you to Dr. Darrell Williams and Tasha Williams, who helped start this multicultural scholarship within our school district of Beloit. And we have reached out to them for some more ideas and support because we felt it was important to continue this on to the future. So I just want to say a special thank you to them. And we hope to grow this in the future, maybe over the years, to not only students, but maybe even some paraeducators if we have the funding for them to continue to go back. What kind of goes back to what you guys were talking about in the other meeting too. But we hope to continue to grow and be able to provide this for people in our city. So thank you. If you have any questions, please let us know.
And we appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the presentation and for everything. Do any board members have questions? Go ahead, Board Member Delgado.
Thank you so much for the presentation. This is like great. I just love it. I wish that it would be extended to those paraeducators too, because they have already made that step as well. I have a few questions for you guys. Is this Grow Your Own program, is this only extended to Latino students, or is it?
Any students of color.
Any students of color, okay, thank
Any
you.
minority students.
How are recipients selected?
They apply through the State Line Community Foundation. There's standard applications, some essay questions, things like that. And then we do an online independent review of applications. And the top 3 to 5 scoring applications come in then for face-to-face or virtual interviews with the committee.
Awesome. So is this only for education fields? Because I noticed that Karen, she's going into some type of like social work.
Yep, so she's going to go into counseling.
Counseling, okay.
So anything within that sort of professional educator umbrella.
But it would be to work here in Beloit districts, so, okay. And how are funds distributed? Is that like a year kind of allotment, or is it like the full 20,000?
They do it by year.
Okay.
And they have to stay in regular communication and give some updated reporting to the State Line Community Foundation
Awesome.
as sort of our fiscal agent.
Okay, and I will be contacting you because I have some contacts that probably may help you
Wonderful,
to
thank
raise
you.
more funds. So
I appreciate
thank
it.
you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Board Member Levy?
Ladies, thank you so much for doing this. Thank you for being clear about how we can help and what the asks are. And I'll be in touch with both of you. I'd love for you to present for our Racial Justice Committee. So that'll be May 19th at noon.
Absolutely.
I'll reach out to both of you to work out the details, but very excited to spread the word about this.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Oh, I'm sorry. Ms. Nora, did you want to jump in? Oh, no, you're good. Okay, sorry. Board Member Wong and then Board Member Anderson.
Thank you so much for the presentation. I think it is great. I mean, it's good to see people that are obviously want to stay in the teaching profession. Couple of questions regarding how do you require, I mean, if they get their degree, are they obligated to come back and teach in our district? Is that part of I mean, is there a contract?
So legally, you cannot require them. They're highly encouraged and they are given opportunity to interview and apply and receive some of the mentoring and coaching along the way. But ultimately, if they decide to go elsewhere, then they go elsewhere.
Okay.
And we've partnered with, Janesville has offered this scholarship for a few years longer than us. And Tim Cullen has been involved with their committee as well. So he's been a really good guide for us to kind of know a lot of those pieces.
You had mentioned that there's a scoring, that it's scoring before, I think you had mentioned.
Before the interviews?
Right. Is it based on merit or means?
You know, it's been about 1.5 years since I have scored an application for this. So I believe it's just based on like the experiences that they had in high school, the pieces that they would put on the application. Then they can be awarded certain points that accumulate to the total score.
Okay. I think as well, I mean, one thing our family, we've always been tried to be very philanthropic, and I think that any organization we're a part of, we try to support. And I think that but what also I know when we're approached, one thing that we do is we always ask the question of how many board members what percent of the board has given. So I think that applying a little pressure onto this group of individuals, I don't think is a bad thing. I think that if we are going to promote our school district, we have to be in support and have these types of programs. We have to be willing as the leading, I guess, the lead of the organization to be able to, I guess, put up as well. So I think we all need to consider that. I'm not telling anybody that they have to, but I think that it goes a long ways, especially when we start to talk to other organizations.
And John, I appreciate you saying that because that was sort of the ask that we made to the administrative team before we took it out to the teachers, because we wanted to say your administrative team has committed some steps towards this as well. So I get exactly what you're saying and I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Board Member Anderson?
I gotta say, this is a great thing to do. It's good to have our students come back and teach because they know what the kids in our community have to go through. And I just gotta say, I can't wait to donate to it.
Thanks, Spencer.
Thank you so much, Board Member Anderson. I think that covers everybody. So I guess I'll just say thank you very much again, and I'm also excited to spread the word, share contacts, and contribute as well. I think it's what I jotted down throughout your presentation. I think it's really important to invest in our students. And we're all a part of the same community, and investing in each other is paramount. And I see that Vice President Wong has another thought he'd like to share. So go right ahead.
Sure.
Sorry. Are donations tax deductible?
Yes.
Okay.
They are, and you will, whether you donate on any of the platforms, however you do it, you will receive the letter from State Line acknowledging your donation, so yes.
Great question. Thank you very much. And just thank both of you. Thank you for your team, and thank you for everybody in our district family who's supporting and contributing to this very
I'll
worthy
pass the
cause.
appreciations on to the committee. Thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you. Have a great night. All right. And so thank you so much. Dr. Kieser, did you have any other thoughts before we move on to the consent agenda?
I just want to thank Ms. Papke and Ms. Hendricks-Nora for taking the opportunity to present. I know that they've done a lot of presenting over the past couple of months in getting this back up and running, and so I look forward to being not only a part of the group, but also part of helping to support this moving forward.
Thank you very much. At this time, we are on agenda item 4, which is the consent agenda. At this time, would anybody like to remove anything from the consent agenda, which, just to remind you, includes items A through D, then J, K, and L?
Oh, I think as you previously mentioned, I would definitely like to have item A removed, please.
Excellent. So we're going to remove item 4A, which is the K through 5 literacy materials adoption. Yeah, I do think it's a good idea to pull that one. It's a very large purchase. Did anybody else have anything that they'd want to remove from the consent agenda before we approve? All right. At this time, 4A is pulled, and can I get a motion to approve the remainder of the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion at this time? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the consent agenda with the modifications made, please say aye.
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 Aye. Are there any opposed? Thank you. Motion passes unanimously. All right, so item 4A is the K through 5 literacy materials adoption. Board Member Levy, since you removed it, did you want to start us off with any questions or comments?
Not a specific question at this point, but if we could get like maybe a 2-minute overview, just in case anyone who's listening did not attend that planning and budgeting meeting, I think that would be helpful.
I agree. Thank you. Dr. Kieser, do you or any of your team want to just give us a quick recap?
Certainly. I can turn it over to the team that presented and. Would you like me to present?
Okay, as far as a 2-minute overview, this literacy adoption actually started in the spring of 2020. And with the pandemic, Dr. Kieser came in July. And as we sat down and discussed literacy, we had specifically a couple of goals to establish with the relaunch of the pilot. The one, probably the biggest one, was to make sure that we had one K-5 literacy resource across the district between both the monolingual and the dual language programs. That was a big ask of Dr. Kieser. And the second ask was to really have more input. As we went into the second round of the pilots, we increased the number of pilot classrooms from 10 to 40. And the other thing that we did was really looked at making sure that both of the resources that we were looking to adopt perhaps were high quality. We used EdReports as kind of the warehouse to look at and evaluate the resources, and we made sure that as we went through the second round, both of the resources that we were piloting, ReadyGen by Savas and then the American Reading Company, were both well-reviewed in the EdReports documents, and we did extensive research about both of those resources and the various components that would be available. The previous pilot had a different resource that wasn't reviewed at all by EdReports, and so they weren't included in the second round. As we went through the process, we wanted to make sure that we had lots and lots of teacher input. So we did a 10 or 11-week pilot with the first resource, ReadyGen. We did another 10-week, 11-week pilot with the second resource, ARC, American Reading Company. And as we went through both of those pilots, we've got data input from teachers at various levels. They all did a quantitative input, took a survey with a rubric that rated areas of standards alignment, digital resources, dual language capacity, ease of use by staff, support by the company. We also did qualitative interviews with the teams, allowing the K-5s to get together in vertical groups to really work together and talk about the pros and cons of both resources. If you want to go back one slide, Joanne, please. Sorry. Oh, forward one. There you go. And here's the data on those resources, the quantitative, those surveys, the qualitative, those vertical groups. We did a plus delta on both resources as well to get some more qualitative input from the staff. And really, it was a pretty overwhelming majority of the staff wanting the American Reading Company as the resource. Some of the key aspects of ARC that really won out as compared to ReadyGen were primarily the focus on the idea that it includes an assessment system within the resource that's aligned to standards, it's aligned to the resource, and it's also in both English and Spanish. And honestly, that was something, they're called the Independent Reading Level Assessment in English and the NEAL in Spanish, and you can use the resource as a diagnostic assessment that also gives staff the ability to, within the resource, modify instruction to meet the needs of students. And that's beginning in kindergarten all the way through 5th grade. And the digital resources were very robust. The cultural relevance of the materials and the representation of students across the resource throughout the grades was robust as well. And so that was a very important aspect also. As we went through the cost, we're in a fortunate position because with the availability of ESSER funds this year, we had a real opportunity to be able to adopt the K-5 in a one-year purchase rather than perhaps having to take that over 3 years, which is going to really allow our implementation to hit the ground running next year. And so between the resources themselves and then a very robust professional development and digital platform, you can see the total on the slide there. As we go into the materials adoption, we will have 4 units per grade level. We're in the process, or will be in the process, with board approval of going back to the teachers and getting yet more input about the units that they would like to adopt for each of the grade levels, and then work with our science and social studies departments also to make sure that that curricula is aligned across the content areas K through 5. ARC will provide an implementation coach that will be accessible to us as needed, and we will have 90 days of professional development throughout the course of the school year next year that will be not only person-to-person professional development, but also on-site in the classroom coaching that will be done by ARC. And as we work with their trainers, we'll be doing some trainer the trainer so that our literacy coaches, our biliteracy coaches, eventually will become the experts in this resource and be able to support internally all of our learning needs. As we looking forward to the following year, our year-to-year costs are about $85,000 or so. for the digital platform, and we'll be able to build that into our teaching, learning, and equity budget. The only other cost for year 2 would be continuing professional development, because it was very clear in the work that we did with teachers and from past experience that our professional development process needs to be planned out for multiple years to make sure that we have a very strong implementation, especially early. I think that might be it. Did I meet 2 minutes? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So I hope that wasn't too fast. I apologize.
No, that was very appreciated. Thank you so much. Are there board members who have questions? Or go ahead, Dr. Kieser.
I just want to take the opportunity before we open up for questions to talk a little bit about the qualitative feedback and specifically in terms of the process that we use with affinity groups and the coding to elevate teacher voice throughout the process.
Sure. So we, as a research junkies that we all tend to be in this profession, as we did the 10 different empathy groups, we had well over 1,000 pieces of data that Ms. Rosa Maria Lorson and I coded individually to really pull out those themes. And I thank you for bringing that up, Dr. Kieser. If you could go to the slide, I don't know which one that is. It's actually the 6th slide, I believe. It was very clear as we spoke to empathy groups across stakeholder groups, whether it was teachers, administrators, parents, students, that there were themes that came across in all of that data. And these themes, cultural relevance and equity, responsiveness to the student needs, foundational skills and standards, joy of reading and literacy identity, home and school literacy partnerships, and then high expectations in college, career, and community readiness. Those themes were clear across those empathy groups, and they not only helped us arrive or kind of relook at the resource, but really is helping us develop a vision for literacy in the school district of Beloit that's going to carry forward. And it was really interesting to hear common themes, whether you're a professional educator or a parent, about their literacy experiences. And that really helps shine a light on what our community needs from a literacy perspective that we really hadn't had before. And so that was really a great experience and really informed our process more than I think we even imagined it would at the beginning.
Thank you so much. Are there board members who have questions or comments at this time? Let me just make sure. It looks like maybe there's something in the chat that I missed here. Okay, thank you so much. Board Member Levy?
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. It was brief, but full of good information. Couple of questions. I love to see that the strategic, the short-term goal that we set is being implemented, and we're making progress towards that with this plan. My question is, what is the identification process for students under the strategic goals? So for example, I know that testing has been off this last year, so how will we identify students that need a 20% increase in their score or a 20% decrease in the gap? And because unfortunately, I think that the disruption to learning has increased that number, not decreased it, is there going to be some sort of triage? Students that have been behind for multiple years will be focused on. And then my second part of that question is, do we have a cap that we can assist 1,000 students through this process well, and with great efficacy and integrity with this programming, or does no such cap exist?
Those are great questions, Board Member Levy, and thank you so much. First of all, we actually just had a meeting. We're in the process of revising our multi-level systems and supports, which is a document that will guide our efforts around, used to be called response to intervention, and now it's called multi-level systems and supports, and really understanding that idea of how we assess students and understand their needs. That is really the deal maker for us with the ARC adoption, is because the independent reading level assessment really gives us a great diagnostic of students' current levels, and then also gives us great information about how to address their needs within the universal curriculum before we have to pull them, before we have to pull them, for additional tier 2 outside of their core universal instruction. So the ERLA is a critical aspect to that process, and we're building the system to identify those students and how they move from tier 2 to tier 3. Right now, we just had a discussion about our capacity as a district, because typically when we look at identifying those students, we're looking for students that are below the 24th percentile. That's kind of been our target over the last several years, somewhere between the 24th and the 15th percentile, because you're just kind of at the 25th percentile moving into the average, proficiency or achievement range. And so when we look at numbers, we're trying to identify what kind of capacity do we have. The only assessment that we've done to date is the PALS assessment. We've done that in kindergarten through second grade. And so as far as a standardized assessment, and that was virtually, we will have forward data as students come back. We are planning on doing MAP when we come back in the spring. We do have curriculum-based assessments. So we have data. It's a matter of how we can make that data reliable so that we can use this system, the multi-level systems and supports system, the student intervention team system, to identify the needs of these students at the universal classroom level, and then make sure that we're meeting their needs as their needs kind of present as needing additional support. And so capacity-wise, Board Member Levy, I don't have a solid answer for you. I think because of the pandemic and the needs that we will see over the course of the next couple of years, I don't know that we'll have capacity to meet those needs as much as we would want them, but we're going to do everything we can to build systems that are responsive to the needs. And one other thing I'm going to say about this is the idea that, to manage your tier 2 and tier 3, you have to have a strong universal. And so that's really another part why we were so happy to see this short-term board goal around literacy, is because this needs to be a point of emphasis. And with this resource, with this commitment and investment, that truly is being done by all parties. So I hope I answered your question, Board.
You did. I am going to sneak in a part 3 of that question. Okay, so this is brilliant. You ready? Has any thought been given to expanding the universal? And what I mean by that is pulling in parents and guardians. So students, we want them to get what they need in the classroom. And if we have some type of fear that we may outstrip our capacity to help them in an efficacious manner using this program, to pull in parents and guardians. I can't think of the name of it. They piloted at Todd and maybe at other locations, but pulling in the parents
Academic
and
parent-teacher teams,
that,
APP teams.
yes.
Yeah.
This is what you need to know in order to help your student. These are the skills that you can be working on at home, because if we equipped our parents and guardians to kind of extend the universal, I think that could be really powerful for our students.
That's a great point, and I love having conversations with Dr. Keyser in our one-on-ones that happen every other week, because we've had conversations about how we'll use the experience of the pandemic to be different when we restart. And the idea that we can learn from this experience and how we've connected with parents and how we've allowed those platforms, Seesaw, Google Classroom, those things to be more familiar to our families, helps that engagement increase. And I think there's a huge opportunity for us to partner with parents in new ways like we have never done before, to extend that universal into the home, to invite parents to be more engaged in that process. So I think you're hitting the mark, absolutely. So that is, and the digital platform with American Reading Company is much more robust than for the Ready Gen Savas. And so that, again, is another opportunity for us to really help students engage digitally while at home with families and vice versa.
Are you good, Board Member Levy? Oh, great. No, thank you so much for your questions, and thank you for taking the time to entertain those.
No problem.
Mr. Bosco, does anybody else have any questions at this time or comments? I just, I know I heard you cover this at the planning and budget meeting, and I appreciate that you and Ms. Larson took such great time to go over like the cultural competency that's built into this curriculum. And I do believe that at the committee meeting you talked about how there would be some continual oversight of that and building improvement. And I'll just point out that I actually just got an email yesterday from a parent asking about, representation for our Asian American Pacific Islander community. So I know we heard a lot about just the above and beyond much better DLI resources that are coming with this, but could you just speak for a moment just to the, I guess just the overall philosophy and like take with this curriculum that it has and cultural competency and the ability for that to expand out as we go?
I think that's the beautiful thing with curricular resources nowadays is when we talk, we've been part of a high quality materials, instructional materials consortium sponsored by the state throughout the course of the entire school year. And the focus on high quality instructional materials is meeting those needs to make sure that our students are represented. But we don't assume that because it's research based that it's going to connect with all of our constituencies. And I think it's very important for us, not just with ARC, but for Springboard and any other curricular resources that we're adopting or implementing, that we make sure that we're doing internal analyses to make sure they just because they say they're culturally relevant on the surface does not mean that they completely meet our standard of cultural relevance. And I think that's something that as we analyze, our goal for year one of ARC is to implement with integrity. That's what we say. It's not about fidelity. It's about implementing with integrity. And then as we go through, we'll be able to analyze that resource and look at the books, look at the text, look at all of the resources. And if there's any supplementation that needs to happen to honor those groups, we're absolutely going to do that. But I think we're very confident this resource is very culturally relevant.
I really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Vice President Wong?
I brought this up at the planning, or it actually was discussed in the planning and budget meeting, but I think it's important for the public to know that didn't hear that this pilot program is sort of a best practice as far as how we approached in selecting this, and the input that was brought out by numerous people within the district and administration, I think is so critical to understand that we are going to great lengths to make sure that we are getting the proper curriculum for our students. So thank you for your efforts, and thanks for, this has been going on for what, a year now?
Over a year.
Yeah, over a year. So we're not just throwing mud against the wall and seeing if it sticks. So thank you for your efforts.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Are there any other questions or comments at this time? All right, hearing none, would somebody, I guess we'll have to pull up in, I don't know if there's suggested motion language in 4A, if anybody, yes, there is. So there is a recommended action if somebody would like to make a motion to approve the purchase of the American Reading Company's K-5 literacy materials in the amount of $1,839,910. Sorry, I said that wrong. No, I didn't. Okay, $1,839,910.
I move approval of the purchase of the American Reading Company's K-5 literacy materials in the amount of $1,839,910.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion at this time? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Are there any opposed? All right, motion passes unanimously. Thank you so much for taking the time to go through that with us again. All right, so that moves us to our meeting closing, which item 5A is future board meeting dates. On the subject, just a moment, I'm going to add to this if that's okay real quick. Dr. Kieser and I exchanged email earlier today. There is a workshop on Thursday, April 22nd, which is Earth Day, at 3 p.m. on AAPI, so Asian American Pacific Islander Community Dialogue via Speak Out, which is a vendor that we've used, I think, in the summer for professional development. So if anybody is interested, I'm definitely planning to attend. If any other board members are interested in attending, if you could let us know so we could post that as a potential for quorum. I think it was like $5 for me to sign up to go, if anybody's planning to attend that. So I just wanted to announce that. Our Policy and Personnel Committee is going to meet Tuesday, April 27th at 5 p.m. We have our board organizational meeting on Tuesday, April 27th at 7 p.m. That's where we'll be electing our new board officers and appointing committees and other positions. Our board business meeting will then meet later that evening on Tuesday, April 27th, 7:15 p.m. or immediately following the board organizational meeting, whichever is later. The Planning and Budget Committee meets Tuesday, May 4th at 5:15 p.m., followed then by the Governance Committee, which will also meet Tuesday, May 4th at either 6:15 p.m. or immediately following the Planning and Budget Committee meeting. Does anybody else have anything for this meeting? All right, if there is no other board business, I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor to adjourn, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any
Aye.
opposed? All right, our meeting is adjourned at 7:55. Thank you so much, and we're going to move right into our next item, which is the swearing in of our new board member. Board member Anderson was sworn in on Friday, right? I believe. So because he had to go out of town, so he's not going to be joining us as he is already sworn in this evening. So let me just kind of pull this up here for our next item, and we'll talk about our swearing in and our onboarding for our new board member. Yes, ma'am. I don't know if we have to wait until 8:30 because it says we're immediately following. We're good. Oh, well, that's okay. All right, well, let it be noted that we are fudging the time, unless do folks want to meet at 8:30? Okay, I guess we won't fudge anything. So I guess we're going to take a Dr. Pepper break, and we will be back at 8:30 to swear in our new board member. So thank you very much, and we'll see you then.